Hello there, captains. Today we'll be declassifying a sleeper pick, which is gonna be the USS Worcester or Worcester. I have absolutely no idea how to exactly pronounce that name. But let's break it down what we have here. We have 12 152mm with a pretty decent reload, almost 17 kilometers of range, and all of those guns, apart from the middle ones, are 360, so you can have a lot of comfort when turning them and switching the target to target. The only side effect that you have from those guns is the fact that you might want to replace your left mouse button from shooting too much, and the fact that you don't really have the 32 ideal pen, you have 30mm of pen base. So on tier 10 you're gonna struggle a little bit with, penning battleships. Second, the consumables. You have a radar and a hydro. The radar is 9 kilometers, so it is not the best and not the worst. Considering that your consummate is 9.8, you don't get the spotted radaring on this ship. Hydro is standard, so it works just fine on protecting you from torpedoes. You also are equipped with Def AA, which helps greatly considering your AA is already pretty strong on a base. And you also have the standard heal because, well, why wouldn't you? Ship's maneuverability is also not lacking, even though the armor may be a little bit fragile, but being nimble enough to dodge on longer ranges is okay. It's not the best, but it's reliable. Speaking of the weak armor, well, you don't really have armor, but sometimes it's even better to have no armor than a lot of it. Because Worcester has very weird citadel shape, you're very often gonna find yourself being overpenned by most of the high pen ships. But what are the weaknesses? Well, broadside to some smaller calibers or upgraded AP will basically delete you. Your guns do not really have a lot of AP pen. Not like the AP is bad, you just don't really pen that much because, well, you don't have decent caliber, right? Also, the same thing that makes it great Island Hugger, the arcs of the guns, makes it that on longer ranges it's borderline impossible for you to reliably hit enemies, especially if they are fast in maneuvering. So you actually gonna need to fight close and personal much of the time. Okay, now is the time to talk a little bit about Captain build and modules. First of all, this is the build that I'm using for Captain, and basically the core is that you upgrade your consumables a little bit, you get more of them on top of better concealment of HP, and then you have a little bit of a dilemma because you either go for the more consistent DPM or you go for consumables and like AA, or you go for a lot of DAC. The choice is basically yours. I'm going for consistent DPM, which is gonna be the IFHE perk, which basically means that I get the 37mm of pen on small cost of my fire chance, making so that I pen a lot more but set a little bit less fires. If you prefer to just melt things down with fires instead, go for either the AA perk, which will make you basically an even stronger AA defense and reduce your cooldown on consumables when using AA, or you go for something like Outnumbered or Top Grade Gunner. Basically the choice is yours in this part. A bonus thing about the Captain is when you're grinding the line, you don't really need IFHE until you go around tier 9. On tier 8 with the 30mm of base pen, that's just fine, as most of the ships on that tier don't really have 32mm of plating, they usually have 25, 27, sometimes 30. So you don't really need that much pen, you're gonna do just fine without it. The further you progress, more towards the tier 10, you're gonna get the IFHE as a viable choice. In terms of upgrades, well, you go for a standard for a cruiser. You don't really need the color radar upgrade here, but it will be handy if you have some code to spare. Do not ever, and I say ever, mount me something of of a range mode on this ship, or even worse, switch out the radar for anything else like spotter or even worse, fighter. I don't want to see it, ever. If I see it, I'm gonna personally go to your house and uninstall World of Warships, okay? This ship is not gonna be performing well on ranges beyond the one that you have stocked, and debatably it even does bad on that very range. So do not ever think of giving it more. You're just putting yourself in a bad spot. For flags, you don't really need much more than well, the HP and the anti-fire one, but others that I've selected here are always in hand. In terms of the general playstyle of this ship, well, in early game, you should focus on getting into good position using your concealment, and a little bit about supporting your allies. The good position for Worcester, especially in early game, would be somewhere behind cover that maybe you can reach the cap of your radar, but do not try to just take very aggressive routes at the start with it, because you might get overrun pretty easily, and you're not that fast as our pushing ships are, so you might get yourself dead. So never push in Worcester, especially in the early game. Try to find yourself a comfortable spot to cover as much area as possible and then proceed to farm. Worcester's arcs allow you to fire over almost every island there is in World of Warships, so you don't need to really worry that much. Just make a side note that if the island is very steep and high, you might need to get a little bit further back. In mid-game, you need to focus around deleting the biggest threats to you, which is gonna be the battleship and the things that are pushing in. You don't need to really worry about aircraft carriers that much, because well, your AA is more than decent, but you need to make sure that when they are spotting you, when your AA is working, you need to be behind cover, otherwise the battleship is gonna easily delete you. Your whole thing is living towards the late game. Worcester becomes true cleanup specialist then. Once enemies are a little bit weakened without their battleships maybe, you can start making very aggressive plays without really that much of a fear. As long as you don't run into something that well has a lot of guns with upgraded AP angles, or generally being something that overmatches you, which is not really that hard to find. You have only 25. You can basically outgun anything. DDs are not a problem for you at all. Aircraft carriers are still not scary. Honestly, aircraft carriers are just so weak against you that you can most of the time ignore them, as long as they are not like MVR or something. You can really just deplane them yourself. In the late game as well, most of the players are not only a little bit damaged, they are also a little bit mad and disoriented, and you can use it very easily since your DPM is very high. So a simple mistake from them, like they tunnel vision on some other ally of yours, it can be easily exploited, since they suddenly realize that, oh well, I'm missing my whole ship's HP all of a sudden. Just a simple mantra: behind islands, well, you're deaf and incarnate, but in open water, you're gonna be a free lunch for basically anyone. Also, if you love your Worcester already, Jacksonville is gonna be a natural upgrade to that. You get just more guns, more range, and you also get a funny button that works basically as building IFHG on cooldown, so you can actually not run IFHG on Jacksonville to conserve your fire chance, and when you're fighting a battleship you can just press that button after a couple salvos and you suddenly are also penning everything. Okay, let's analyze one game to make sure we are all on track with what we have to do. First of all, I spawn middle-ish to left flank, but I already knew where I will be going, since on this map there are almost any island is at least decent for the ship. However, this one near A cap seems almost ideal. It's close enough so that I can cover two caps with my radar, almost two caps with my radar, but it also allows me to farm most of the ships, and most of the enemies are gonna be within my range. It also provides pretty decent cover from enemy battleship crossfire, keeps me undetected, which is the most important, and is on the flight path from enemy CV to most of my allies, meaning that I help them deal with it as well. However, I actually didn't need to help my allies with the CV, since the CV was pretty much occupied with me anyway for whatever reason. But, like I said, we don't care much about CVs. After I noticed that most of the enemies are gonna be sitting behind the island, so when I cannot shoot him, I decided to move a little bit to the front, and I also noticed that all of their battleships are basically on the left side of the map, with nothing really giving me any problems on the right, meaning that I can move very nicely to the middle, keeping more enemies in my range, while also securing our allies' push from the right to the left side of the map. I kinda wanted to use this smoke screen, but the moment I reached it, it was already ending, so I had to move. I caught, I caught these DDs here, and they, even though were trying their best to dodge and don't get really killed by me, it still led to their demise, so we had this whole right flank push almost secured. From this, I tried to get some free shots, and the moment I've noticed this Pungo coming out, yeah, remember when I told you that the moment they're focused on somebody else from their team and they make this kind of, let's say, tunnel vision push, they will suddenly wake up, realize that I'm missing most of my ship's HP, because that's exactly what Worcester is capable of. Once I saw this incomparable going in, and enemy Essex getting them smokescreen, I popped in my radar to make sure that nothing from the smokescreen will hinder Incomparable's push. And I've decided that it's a high time for me to make something happen and help him out as well. So I pushed out, switching to AP the moment I saw perfect broadside, but you have to keep in mind that I was not shooting the belt, I shot the weak plating above it, because I wouldn't pen the belt of Montana actually. Killing Hindenburg was not really that big of a deal. Enemy CV was still trying his best to kill me. However, apart from a couple of rockets and bombs he hit throughout the game, I don't think he even did that much damage, to be honest. Using my range and the fact that Luciano was not really the brightest, he was running FIAs today. I've gunned him down. I got my Confederate, which if you were running holes, you would actually give you even more bonus to it. And then I basically found my heart's content enemy planes from Essex. Unfortunately, since we are winning a little bit too hard, the points in the replays are inverted. We won before I managed to kill the Essex and we farmed some more planes. However, the score is fairly decent, I think. So, is Worcester worth playing? Absolutely. Even though the ship is a little bit fragile, in the right hands, she is a monster. You basically have a ship with very consistent DPM that has very good AA and is generally capable of carrying the game it by itself. The only thing it doesn't really have is like upgraded AP and torpedoes, honestly. But so many people sleep on it, I don't really know why. It might seem like this ship is kind of classified technology, but it's all for you to grasp. All I need to do is start the grind. And if you mount range mod, if I find you mounting range mod or running spotter plane, I'm gonna call my well-known associate and you're gonna disappear from their records. It's been Senpai Silent. See you next time.